The ocean floor trembles, not violently, not yet, but with the slow, deliberate pressure of something vast, shifting its weight after a very long sleep. Miles above, in a dimly lit operations hall carved into the reinforced rock of Anchorage Base, warning lights flicker across holographic displays. The room hums with low electrical tension, the sound of a world still half-built back together. Engineers pause mid-sentence, technicians straighten in their seats. Every eye drifts toward the central seismic map as a new waveform crawls across the screen. Not a spike, not an impact. A pulse. "Confirm that reading," Marshal Stacker Pentecost says quietly. His voice cuts through the room with practiced calm. He hasn't raised it. He doesn't need to. The Kaiju War taught everyone here what it means when Pentecost speaks softly. A technician swallows, fingers flying across a glass console. "Sir, it's not a fault. Deep ocean displacement, Pacific Basin, below Challenger deep levels." Pentecost's jaw tightens. That depth is wrong. The breach never went that far down. Outside, the Pacific is deceptively calm. Dawn light stretches across the water like polished steel, waves rolling in gentle, obedient rhythms. Cargo vessels glide through shipping lanes once written off as dead zones. On the surface, the world looks healed. Below it, something ancient stirs. In the PPDC's oceanic surveillance grid, autonomous drones drift like metal plankton, their sensors drinking in pressure, radiation, magnetic flux. One by one, their feeds distort, not with interference, but with overload. Radiation levels climb. Not kaiju radiation, not breach energy. Older, denser, controlled. Cross-reference against all known kaiju signatures, Pentecost orders. The room fills with the whisper of processors at work. Ghostly outlines of past nightmares flash briefly on secondary screens, Knifehead, Otachi, Slattern, each overlaid, compared, rejected. Red markers blink. No match, no match, no match. Dr. Herman Gottlieb leans forward, eyes wide behind his glasses. That's impossible," he mutters, already typing furiously. The radiation decay curve doesn't align with extra-dimensional biology. It's terrestrial, intensely terrestrial. Newton Geisler stands beside him, arms folded, restless. "You're saying it's from Earth," he says, "but nothing on Earth generates that kind of output without tearing itself apart." Gottlieb doesn't look up. "Nothing modern." Another pulse rolls through the deep. This one is stronger. The seismic map ripples outward in perfect concentric rings, as if the planet itself has exhaled. On a monitor, a deep-sea drone's camera feed stabilizes just long enough to show darkness, absolute, light-devouring black, before a shape moves through it, not fast, not aggressive, just present. The feed cuts to static. Silence grips the room. Pentecost steps closer to the screen, his expression unreadable, but his hands curl slowly into fists. He's seen monsters rise from the sea before. He knows the difference between chaos and purpose. "This wasn't triggered by the breach," he says. "It's not a question." "No, sir," the technician replies. His voice shakes despite himself. "The breach is dormant. This, whatever it is, it was already there." Outside the base, storm clouds begin to gather far out over the Pacific. Weather satellites register a pressure anomaly, forming without wind patterns to support it, as if the atmosphere itself is responding to something beneath the waves. Back in the control room, Gottlieb finally turns, pale. "If this signature continues to rise," he says, choosing his words with care, "it will breach the surface within hours. And when it does," he trails off. Newton finishes the thought, barely above a whisper. "It won't be a kaiju." Pentecost stares at the darkened screen where the shape vanished. For the first time since the war ended, the room feels too small, the ceiling too low, the planet too fragile. "Alert Coastal Command," Pentecost says at last. "I want all deep-sea sensors at maximum sensitivity. No leaks, no panic." He pauses, eyes hard. "And get me everything humanity's ever buried about pre-kaiju seismic anomalies. If this thing predates the war." Another pulse ripples through the Pacific, stronger than the last. The lights dim for half a second as power reroutes across the base. Somewhere in the abyss, something continues to rise, not invading, not hunting, answering a call only it understands. On the main display, a single line of text appears beneath the unreadable data stream. Unidentified Titanic signature. Classification unknown. And for the first time since the breach closed, the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps realizes the war may never have been the beginning. The data doesn't arrive politely. It floods the room in a storm of red lines and reactivated archives, alarms cascading across screens that haven't been touched in years. "Pull it up again," Newton Geisler snaps, already pacing. "Not the filtered version. Raw." Herman Gottlieb hesitates for half a second, then disables 3 separate safety protocols. The lights in the analysis chamber dim as the system reallocates power, ancient servers whirring back to life. Dust shakes loose from ceiling panels, systems long considered obsolete waking from enforced sleep. The wall-length display fills with seismic timelines. Not days, not years, decades. Waveforms stretch backward 20, 30, 50 years, thin at first, barely perceptible, buried under tectonic noise and dismissed anomalies. But now, aligned, layered, magnified, they form a pattern that makes Gottlieb's breath catch. A rhythm. "Those pulses," he whispers. They repeat at intervals too precise for natural tectonics, not random, not chaotic. Pentecost stands behind them, hands clasped behind his back, eyes locked on the screen. "How far back?" Gottlieb swallows. "The earliest trace is from 1973. A Soviet deep-sea test flagged it as background interference and buried the report." Newton lets out a sharp laugh that carries no humor. "So while everyone was busy watching the Cold War, something down there was clearing its throat." The room falls quiet as the implication settles in. The kaiju didn't start this. They interrupted it. Outside, rain lashes against the reinforced windows of the anchorage facility. The storm came in fast. No warning systems caught it forming. Satellite feeds struggled to stabilize as atmospheric pressure over the Pacific begins behaving erratically, bending around an invisible center. In the command tower, a new argument unfolds. "This is speculative," a sharply dressed liaison from the Global Defense Council insists, voice tight with irritation. "You're asking for mass coastal advisories based on correlations and ghosts in old data." Pentecost doesn't raise his voice. "I'm asking to prepare." "Prepare for what?" The liaison fires back. "There's no confirmed hostile intent, no breach activity, no kaiju signatures." Gottlieb steps forward, unusually firm. "That is precisely the point. This is not kaiju biology. This is something that predates them, possibly predates us." The liaison scoffs. "You're suggesting the Kaiju War woke something up." Newton's eyes narrow, or scared it into moving. Silence follows. Across the Pacific Rim, small things begin to happen. Fishing boats report strange currents tugging them off course. Harbor waters drain and refill without tides to explain it. Animals abandon coastlines in silent, instinctive migrations inland. No alarms sound, no orders are given. People just leave. In Tokyo, commuters pause on elevated walkways as the bay water below ripples unnaturally, concentric rings spreading outward without wind. In San Francisco, a fog bank rolls in thick and radioactive instruments spike for 3 seconds before normalizing. In Manila, an entire neighborhood evacuates after residents wake from the same dream, something massive passing beneath their homes. Back at PPDC headquarters, a deep-sea sonar array pings. Once, then again. "Contact," a technician says, voice strained, "bearing 307. Range, God." The display resolves into a shadow so large it doesn't fully fit on the screen. Not spiked, not aggressive in shape, smooth, armored, impossibly vast. The scale indicator recalibrates twice, then gives up. Newton steps closer, face pale. "That's bigger than Slattern." Gottlieb can't look away, and it's not accelerating, it's cruising. For 3 seconds, the shadow glides beneath the sonar net, its mass displacing water in a way that sends secondary shockwaves racing across the grid. Instruments scream, radiation sensors tick upward, not in bursts, but in a steady, controlled rise. Then the shadow turns, just enough for the sonar to lose it. The contact vanishes. No explosion, no surge, no trace. The room exhales all at once. Pentecost straightens slowly. "Issue the evacuation advisories," he says, quietly. "Coastal relocation under seismic precaution." The liaison opens his mouth to protest, then stops. He's seen the data now. He nods once and leaves without another word. Gottlieb's hands tremble as he saves the final frame of the sonar image. "If this entity has been dormant for decades," Newton finishes the thought, "then it wasn't the breach that brought the kaiju here." Another pulse ripples through the deep, stronger than before. Somewhere beneath the Pacific, the ghost moves again. The ocean breaks before anything rises. A wall of water surges outward in a perfect ring, flattening waves into glass as it expands. Satellites scramble to recalibrate, buoys vanish, ships lose bearing. In the open Pacific, hundreds of miles from the nearest coastline, the sea itself seems to recoil, as if something beneath it has just stood up. Then the water parts. Not explosively, not violently. It withdraws. A massive dorsal ridge cuts through the surface, black and jagged, steaming, as cold seawater flashes into vapor on contact. Another follows, and another. Each step sends a rolling tsunami, racing away in every direction, not aimed, not malicious, collateral from sheer mass. Godzilla rises. He does not roar at first, he does not thrash or strike, he simply stands, towering above the ocean, his body outlined by stormlight as thunder rolls across a sky bent unnaturally low. Rain hits his armored hide and evaporates instantly, hissing into white mist that clings to him like a shroud. Across the world, alarms erupt. In Anchorage, the PPDC command floor snaps into chaos as feeds pour in from every sensor still functioning. The seismic signature spikes off the charts, then stabilizes, controlled, deliberate. "Visual confirmation," the technician breathes, barely audible over the din. The main screen fills with a live satellite feed. The image shakes, struggles to focus, then locks. Pentecost doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. Everyone in the room knows what they're looking at. "That's not a kaiju," Newton says, in his voice hollow. Gottlieb's hands are frozen over his console, eyes wide behind his glasses. No kaiju displays bilateral symmetry at that scale. And the radiation profile, it's stable. self-regulating. Godzilla shifts his weight. The ocean answers with another massive surge that races outward, striking distant coastlines minutes later. Harbors flood, sea walls groan, entire ports go dark without a single claw ever touching them. In Tokyo, emergency sirens wail as water spills into lower districts. In San Diego, aircraft carriers scramble to open sea, their decks slick with rain and panic. In Hong Kong, rebuilt and reinforced after the Kaiju War, evacuation routes clog as authorities issue conflicting orders. Attack, observe, withdraw. No one agrees on what Godzilla is. He's not advancing on population centers, a PPDC analyst reports. Trajectory is linear, heading west-northwest. Pentecost steps closer. Toward what? The analyst hesitates. Open ocean, no cities, no military installations. Godzilla's head turns slightly, slow and deliberate, his ancient eyes glowing faintly beneath the storm clouds. A low rumble rolls from his chest, not a challenge, not a threat, but something closer to acknowledgement. A call answered. Deep beneath the waves, pressure sensors spike again, echoing the rhythm first detected hours earlier. Two signals now resonating at compatible frequencies. He's responding to it, Gottlieb says, awe and fear warring in his voice. Whatever stirred beneath the Pacific, it called, and this creature heard it. Military leaders around the world don't share his fascination. In a hardened command bunker, a general slams his fist onto a table. You're telling me that thing just walks out of the ocean and we do nothing? We don't know if we can do anything, another replies, and if we provoke it. Godzilla takes a step forward. The ocean floor shifts, another tsunami forms. He's moving again, the analyst reports. Speed increasing, direction holding. Pentecost's gaze sharpens. Overlaid Jaeger patrol zones. The holographic map adjusts. Blue markers bloom across the Pacific, mobile defense grids, standing sentinels in waters once dominated by kaiju. A red line intersects one of them. Sir, the technician says quietly. He's heading straight for a Jaeger patrol corridor. Inside a Mark 6 Jaeger, deep beneath the clouds, two pilots feel the ocean change around them. Pressure rises, currents bend, the water grows warm. Do you feel that? One of them asks, fingers tightening on the neural interface. Before the other can answer, the sea outside the cockpit glows faintly blue. Back in Anchorage, Pentecost straightens, his voice cutting clean through the noise. All units hold fire. No aggressive action. He pauses, eyes fixed on the towering figure on the screen as Godzilla subtly adjusts his course. Precise now, intentional. Bring that Jaeger to full alert, Pentecost says, whatever this is. Godzilla turns fully and starts towards them. The Jaeger's descent is slow and deliberate, metal limbs cutting through the dark water with controlled grace. Floodlights pierce the abyss, illuminating clouds of drifting sediment and the occasional flicker of bioluminescent life fleeing its path. This is not a combat drop. No weapons are armed. Every system is tuned for observation. Depth holding at 6,000 meters, the left pilot says, voice steady but tight. Radiation levels elevated, but within tolerance. Inside the con-pod, the world is reduced to motion, breath, and the shared hum of neural sync. Their minds brush against each other, fear held in check by training, awe creeping in despite themselves. PPDC command, the right pilot says. We have visual range on the contact zone, still no hostile movement. Above them, clouds boil. Lightning crawls across the sky in slow spiderweb arcs, drawn towards something far below the surface. The ocean itself seems restless, currents twisting unnaturally around a growing point of pressure. Then the water ahead begins to glow. Not bright, not yet. A faint blue shimmer blooms in the darkness, like moonlight filtering through impossible depths. The Jaeger's sensors spike all at once. Radiation, thermal output, mass displacement. Contact, both pilots say at the same time. Godzilla rises into view. He emerges gradually as if allowing the machine time to comprehend him. First the armored slope of his shoulder, then the massive curve of his neck, finally his head, eyes burning with an ancient, radioactive glow that cuts through the deep like twin stars. The Jaeger freezes mid-step. Even at full height, the Mark VI feels small. Oh my God, the left pilot breathes before catching himself. That's not possible. Godzilla doesn't attack him. He doesn't advance. He simply stands there, water rolling off his scales in slow-motion cascades, dorsal plates pulsing faintly as if breathing. The ocean around him vibrates with contained power, a living reactor held in perfect balance. In Anchorage, the command floor is silent. Pentecost leans forward, hands braced on the railing, eyes never leaving the feed. "Maintain distance," he says calmly. "No weapons lock. You are there to observe, nothing more." Inside the con-pod, the pilots comply, easing the Jaeger back a single step. Hydraulics hiss softly. The machine's reactors thrum, suddenly very loud in the stillness. Godzilla's gaze follows the movement. Not aggressive. Assessing. For a long moment, the two titans simply regard one another, humanity's last line of defense, and something far older, far heavier, born of a world before humans learned how to stand upright. "Feels like he's thinking," the right pilot says quietly. Godzilla tilts his head. The water around his jaws begins to shimmer. "Command," the left pilot says, heart pounding. "Radiation's increasing." "Hold," Pentecost replies. "Do not engage." Godzilla inhales. The ocean ignites. Blue-white energy floods through the water, lighting the abyss like a second sun. Radiation cascades outward in controlled waves, not striking the Jaeger but passing around it, bending currents and boiling seawater into roiling clouds of steam. Then Godzilla roars. The sound doesn't just travel through water, it crushes it. Shockwaves slam into the Jaeger's frame, alarms screaming as structural integrity warnings flare across the cockpit. The pilots grit their teeth, muscles locking as the neural bridge strains under the pressure. But still, no attack. The roar isn't aimed at them. It's aimed past them. The Jaeger's sensors recalibrate automatically, locking onto the direction of the roar. Deep-sea readings spike far beyond Godzilla's position, farther than the Jaeger's floodlights can reach. Something else answers. Not a sound, an echo in the planet itself. A seismic pulse ripples through the ocean floor, ancient and immense, resonating at the same frequency that first drew Godzilla to the surface. Inside the con-pod, the pilots exchange a look. "He's not challenging us," the right pilot says, realization dawning. "He's warning something." "Or calling it out," the left pilot adds. Godzilla shifts his stance, turning slightly away from the Jaeger, dorsal plates burning brighter as he faces the unseen depths beyond them. For the first time since emerging, his posture changes, from awareness to intent. Pentecost's voice cuts in over the comms, low and urgent. "Jaeger unit, disengage, fall back immediately." The pilots don't hesitate, and the Jaeger pivots, systems protesting as it retreats through churning water. Behind them, Godzilla takes a single step forward, past where the Jaeger stood, toward the darkness waiting beyond. The warning comes half a second too late. "Energy spike! Godzilla's dorsal plates are surging again," a technician shouts in Anchorage, voice breaking through the controlled calm of the command floor. "Magnitude rising fast." Inside the con-pod, the Jaegers pilots feel it before they hear it, a sudden pressure, like the ocean drawing a breath around them. "Command, we're getting unpredictable radiation vectors," the left pilot says, hands tightening on the control grips. "He's moving, fast." Godzilla pivots. Not toward the abyss this time. Toward them. The water detonates as his massive form surges forward, displacement alone creating a shockwave that slams into the Jaeger's chest. The Mark VI staggers backward, stabilizes, screaming as hydraulics fight to keep the machine upright. Fall back now," Pentecost orders. But momentum has already taken over. In the chaos of overlapping signals, radiation flares, seismic pulses, power fluctuations, a targeting system misreads intent as hostility. Somewhere deep in the Jaeger's combat core, an automated safeguard flips from passive to defensive. Weapons arm. No, disengage," the right pilot yells, fighting the controls as warning lights bloom across the cockpit. Too late. The Jaeger's plasma cannon discharges. A lance of superheated energy tears through the water and slams into Godzilla's shoulder, lighting the ocean in violent blue-white fire. For an instant, the blast seems enormous, cataclysmic even. Then the light fades. Godzilla barely moves. Steam rolls off his hide, but beneath it the armor is unbroken. The radiation disperses across his scales and bleeds harmlessly into the surrounding water, absorbed, neutralized, forgotten. In Anchorage, the room goes dead silent. That did nothing, someone whispers. Godzilla turns his head slowly, eyes locking onto the Jaeger with something new burning behind them, not rage, not pain. Annoyance. "Oh, hell," Newton mutters. Godzilla roars. Not the warning call from before, but a full-throated declaration of dominance that shreds the water column. The shockwave smashes into the Jaeger head-on, hurling the 70-meter machine backward like scrap metal. Alarms scream. The pilots are thrown against their harnesses as the con-pod shudders violently. "Structural integrity at 60% and falling," the left pilot shouts. "We're losing balance." Godzilla closes the distance in 2 colossal steps. The Jaeger raises an arm reflexively, deploying its chainsword in a blur of blue energy. The blade hums to life, slicing through water and striking Godzilla's forearm in a spray of sparks and light. The sword bites. Barely. The blade skids along his scales, carving a shallow groove before snapping apart, the energy field collapsing in a shower of dying particles. Godzilla doesn't even look at the damage. His tail moves. The strike is almost casual, a sweeping arc, driven by muscle older than human civilization. It hits the Jaeger's midsection with impossible force. Armor buckles, metal shrieks. The machine is launched sideways, spinning uncontrollably as it crashes into the sea floor, carving a trench through rock and sediment. Inside the con-pod, everything goes red. Emergency lights flash. Systems fail in rapid succession. The neural link strains as pain, mechanical, disorienting, floods both pilots at once. "Power loss in the left leg," the right pilot gasps. "Gyros are down. We can't stand." The Jaeger lies on its side, half buried, one arm twisted at an unnatural angle. Water pours through fractured plating, hissing as it meets overheated systems. Godzilla looms over it. For one terrible moment it feels like judgment has arrived, that this is where humanity's last defense ends, crushed beneath something it was never meant to fight. The pilots brace themselves. Godzilla doesn't strike. He leans closer, massive head lowering until one glowing eye fills the Jaeger's forward viewport. Radiation hums softly, not spiking, not surging, controlled, contained, studying. Then, without warning, Godzilla straightens. He steps past the fallen Jaeger. The pressure shifts as his immense form moves away, currents dragging the crippled machine slightly before settling. Godzilla doesn't look back. His attention has already returned to the depths beyond, to the call still echoing through the planet. In Anchorage, Pentecost exhales slowly, realizing his hands are shaking. He spared them, Gottlieb says, stunned. He could have destroyed the Jaeger effortlessly. Newton stares at the screen, dread creeping into his voice, which means we weren't the threat. Inside the con-pod, the pilots sit in stunned silence, listening to Godzilla's footsteps fade into the deep. Humanity's greatest weapon lies broken, and whatever Godzilla is truly here for is still ahead. The footage leaks within hours. Not officially, not sanctioned. Just enough frames, grainy, shaking, undeniable, to spread across the world like a crack in glass. A Jaeger, humanity's steel colossus, lying broken on the ocean floor. And towering over it, a shape so vast the camera can't contain it. Godzilla. Confidence doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes. In rebuilt cities along the Pacific Rim, people stop looking up at Jaeger statues with pride and start looking at the sea with suspicion. News channels argue over terminology, entity, organism, titan, carefully avoiding the word enemy. Military briefings leak conflicting assessments. Some call the encounter a tactical anomaly. Others call it a warning shot from nature itself. Inside the PPDC headquarters, the mood is darker than it has been since the final days of the Kaiju War. The damaged Mark 6 is being towed into a dry dock, its armor peeled back like torn skin. Engineers move quietly around it, voices low, reverent, as if standing beside a fallen giant. The tailstrike impact zone is a crater of warped alloy and shattered hydraulics. This section was rated to withstand sustained kaiju-class trauma, an engineer says, disbelief etched across his face. Slatton couldn't do this in one hit. Pentecost watches from the observation deck, jaw set. He doesn't speak. In the analysis chamber, Gottlieb projects comparative data across the walls. Kaiju profiles, breach entities, Jaeger engagement outcomes, all stacked against a single new column labeled with one word: Godzilla. Our entire doctrine, Gottlieb says carefully, is built around repelling invaders, extraterrestrial organisms exploiting dimensional instability. We optimized for aggression, adaptability, numbers. Newton finishes for him. We didn't plan for this. Onto the screen, Godzilla's radiation output cycles appear again, self-regulating, precise, almost surgical. No runaway spikes, no unstable decay, power without chaos. He's not an invader, Gottlieb continues. He's a stabilizer, a balancing force. A strategist across the table scoffs. You're suggesting we just let him do whatever he wants? I'm suggesting, Gottlieb replies, uncharacteristically sharp, that stopping him may be beyond us, and attempting it could be catastrophic. Around the world, governments fracture along fault lines of fear and pride. One coalition demands escalation. New weapons, nuclear contingencies quietly removed from mothball status. If Jaegers can't stop him, something must. Another faction urges restraint. Godzilla hasn't attacked a city. He hasn't targeted civilians. Every wave, every surge has been collateral. Terrible, yes, but incidental. Purposeful movement without conquest. The question shifts in whispered meetings and late-night calls. Not, can we stop him? But should we? On the Pacific coast, evacuation orders expand, not from official decree, but from instinct. Ports empty. Beaches are abandoned. The sea becomes something to give space to, like a sleeping predator that might wake if disturbed. In Anchorage, Pentecost sits alone in the command chamber long after most of the staff have left. The lights are dimmed. Only the low hum of servers and the slow scroll of oceanic telemetry remain. Newton breaks the silence. You're thinking the same thing we are. Pentecost doesn't look up. Say it anyway. If Godzilla wanted us gone, Newton says quietly, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. Gottlieb nods. His engagement parameters suggest restraint, even mercy. Pentecost finally turns, his eyes are tired. Mercy doesn't make him safe. No, Gottlieb agrees, but it makes him intentional. A warning alarm cuts through the room. Sharp, urgent. A technician rushes in, face pale. Sir, deep-sea sensors are spiking again. Pentecost stands instantly. Where? Everywhere, the technician replies. Multiple vectors, multiple depths, different signatures. The main display flares to life. The Pacific Basin lights up with red indicators, dozens of them, pulsing in uneven rhythm, not matching Godzilla's pattern, not matching each other. Newton's blood runs cold. That's not one thing. Gottlieb zooms in on the data, fingers trembling. These readings, they're resonating, harmonizing. From the depths of the Pacific, something answers Godzilla's earlier call. No, something's. Pentecost straightens, the weight of the moment settling onto his shoulders. Sound a global alert, he says. All commands, all assets. He looks back at the screen and at the spreading constellation of unknowns beneath the sea. The world just got a lot bigger, he says quietly, and far more dangerous. The ocean tears itself open. No warning tremor, no gradual build-up. One moment the Pacific Basin is a field of restless signals. The next it collapses inward as if reality itself has been punctured. Water funnels downward in a spiraling vortex, dragged toward a growing wound in the planet's crust. The breach is back. It erupts miles wide, far larger than the original scar humanity bled to close. Blue light pours from it in violent, unstable waves, refracting through seawater and sky alike. Pressure detonates outward, flattening waves into walls and hurling them toward distant shores. In Anchorage, every alarm the PPDC still has lights up at once. Breach event confirmed, a technician shouts. But this isn't a standard aperture. Energy fluctuation is off the scale. Pentecost is already moving, commands snapping into place with grim precision. All coastal defenses to emergency posture. Get me live feeds from every drone we've got. On the main display, the ocean floor fractures further as the breach expands, its edges jagged and unstable, tearing through bedrock like tissue. Inside it, something moves. Too fast, too chaotic. Then the kaiju start coming through. The first bursts out in a spray of water and light, smaller than the titans of the final war. Its armor cracked, movements erratic. It doesn't roar, it doesn't charge. It runs. The creature thrashes toward open ocean, fleeing blindly as if chased by something unseen. Before anyone can process it, another kaiju follows, then another, emerging in rapid succession, colliding with one another in their panic. These aren't assault formations, Gottlieb says, staring at the data. Their neural signatures are distressed. Newton's eyes widen. They're not invading. A kaiju turns back toward the breach for a split second, shrieking, a sound raw with terror before something massive surges inside the aperture. A pulse of energy rips outward, slamming the creature mid-turn and vaporizing it in a flash of blue-white light. Silence grips the command floor. The precursors aren't attacking. They're evacuating. Across the Pacific, kaiju scatter in every direction, ignoring cities, ships, even Jaeger patrol zones. Some collapse mid-flight as their unstable biology fails under the strain. Others plunge back into the depths, desperate to hide anywhere but near the breach. What could scare them this badly? A strategist whispers. No one answers. Then the cameras catch him. Godzilla stands in the open ocean, framed by the distant glow of the breach. The storm above him spirals tighter, lightning snapping down into the water around his massive form, drawn toward the rising radiation in his dorsal plates. He stops moving. For the first time since emerging, Godzilla turns fully, deliberately toward the breach. Every sensor spikes. "Radiation levels climbing," a technician calls out. "Internal buildup, he's charging." Godzilla's dorsal plates blaze brighter, the blue glow intensifying into a near-white core that pulses in rhythm with the planet's own seismic heartbeat. The water around him boils, steam exploding upward in towering plumes that briefly obscure his silhouette. Gottlieb's voice trembles with awe and fear. He's not reacting defensively. This is intent, purposeful escalation. Newton swallows hard. He's not coming for us. On the screen, Godzilla draws in a massive breath. The glow crawls up his spine into his neck, pulling behind his clenched jaws like a contained star. Pentecost stares, realization hitting him with the weight of inevitability. He's responding to the breach. A kaiju limps across the surface in the foreground, its armored hide scorched, its movements frantic. It barely has time to look back. Godzilla releases a warning roar that rolls across the ocean like thunder made solid. The sound slams into the fleeing creature, forcing it aside without killing it, clearing a path. Then Godzilla takes a step forward. And another. Each step sends shockwaves rippling across the sea, but his gaze never leaves the breach. Inside the aperture, the blue light flickers wildly, destabilizing, as if reacting to his presence. "They opened a door again," Newton murmurs, "and now they regret it." Godzilla's jaws part. The energy inside his throat reaches critical mass, radiation readings peaking higher than any weapon humanity has ever built. The air itself ionizes around his head, bending light, warping the image. Pentecost speaks softly, almost to himself. "All units stand down. Whatever happens next." Godzilla's eyes burn bright. "We're not the ones deciding it." The atomic glow surges forward, moments from release, as Godzilla aims straight into the heart of the breach, ready to answer an old enemy that has returned far too afraid to fight. The atomic breath detonates across the surface of the Pacific like a second sunrise. Blue-white fire lances from Godzilla's jaws and slams into the breach, the beam carving a glowing scar through the unstable aperture. The ocean boils instantly, shock waves rippling outward in concentric rings that scatter fleeing kaiju like insects caught in a flood. Water turns to steam. The sky above flashes as the atmosphere ionizes, lightning snapping down into the expanding plume. Inside the PPDC command center, every screen whites out before stabilizing. "He hit it," Newton breathes. "He actually hit the breach." The energy feedback is violent. The edges of the breach writhe and contract, its internal light flickering erratically, as if something on the other side is screaming without sound. For a moment, just a moment, it looks like Godzilla might tear the gateway apart through sheer force. Then, the kaiju swarm surges. Dozens of them erupt from the breach in chaotic bursts, not in formation, not coordinated, thrown outward by the blast like shrapnel. Some are incinerated mid-emergence. Others hit the water hard and keep moving, instincts overriding fear as they scatter toward any direction that isn't glowing blue. "Jaeger teams, you're clear to engage kaiju targets only," Pentecost orders, voice hard and focused. Do not engage Godzilla. Repeat, do not engage Godzilla. Across the Pacific, surviving Jaegers deploy. Steel giants wading into churning waters and ruined coastlines. Plasma cannons light up the storm-darkened horizon. Missiles streak through sheets of rain. Chainsaws ignite in arcs of crackling energy as machines built for this exact nightmare finally do what they were designed to do. Godzilla doesn't acknowledge them. He moves through the battlefield like a force of nature given direction, advancing toward the breach with relentless purpose. Kaiju that stray too close are obliterated, sometimes by a casual tail sweep, sometimes by a brief, controlled burst of atomic fire that vaporizes them without slowing his stride. For the first time, Jaeger pilots fight alongside something far larger than themselves. Not in formation, not in command, but in parallel. Inside one compod, two pilots watch Godzilla tear through a kaiju that had nearly overpowered them moments earlier. The creature is ripped in half by a blast of atomic energy, its remains sinking into the boiling sea. "He just saved us," one pilot says, stunned. "No," the other replies, eyes locked forward. "He didn't even see us." The battlefield fractures into three fronts. Jaegers engage kaiju near coastlines, holding the line to protect evacuation corridors. Godzilla advances relentlessly toward the breach, annihilating anything between him and it. And within the aperture itself, something begins to change. "Command," Gottlieb says, voice tight with urgency. "The precursors are adapting in real time. They're analyzing Godzilla's energy output. On the main display, the breach pulses again, harder this time. A new kaiju form pushes through, larger and more deliberate than the panicked creatures before it. Its armor is dark, layered and reflective, plates overlapping in complex shifting patterns. "This one's different," Newton says. "It's not running." The kaiju emerges fully and turns, not toward the cities, not toward the Jaegers, but toward Godzilla. Godzilla stops. The storm seems to hold its breath. The new kaiju roars, its chest plates unfolding to reveal a dense lattice of crystalline armor that hums faintly as it absorbs ambient radiation. Godzilla fires a short atomic burst without hesitation. The beam hits and disperses. The energy fractures across the kaiju's armor, bending, refracting, bleeding off harmlessly into the surrounding water. The creature staggers but does not fall. Silence crashes down across every command channel. "Oh no," Newton whispers, "they built it for him." Godzilla's dorsal plates flare brighter, the glow intensifying as he charges again, but this time his posture changes, less dismissive, more focused. He takes a step forward. The kaiju answers, charging in return. The impact is cataclysmic. Titan and kaiju collide in an explosion of water and force, shockwaves ripping outward and slamming into nearby Jaegers, throwing them off balance. The seafloor cracks beneath the pressure. Sensors spike beyond safe thresholds. Pentecost watches the feed, expression grim. This just became a three-way war. Jaeger pilots scramble to reorient, suddenly aware that the battlefield has shifted. Kaiju are no longer just weapons against humanity. They are now weapons against Godzilla. And humanity is caught in between. The adaptive kaiju digs its claws into Godzilla's armor, holding its ground against a force that flattened entire cities. Godzilla roars, fury and challenge mingling, as he braces himself for a fight that will not end quickly. Deep beneath the ocean, the breach pulses again, and something larger begins to move toward it. The city burns before the evacuation sirens finish their first cycle. Towering sea walls crumble as kaiju surge through the harbor in numbers no simulation ever prepared for. Neon-lit skyscrapers flicker and die as power grids collapse block by block, the skyline folding into darkness beneath sheets of rain and fire. The megacity, rebuilt stronger after the Kaiju War, promised safety by steel giants and human resolve, falls in less than an hour. Jaegers fight in the streets, their massive frames wedged between buildings, every movement constrained by the very civilization they were meant to protect. Plasma cannons roar, missiles streak, and kaiju blood floods avenues like toxic rivers. But there are too many of them. "Sector 7 is overrun," a pilot shouts over comms, his voice breaking as his Jaeger is dragged down by clawed limbs swarming from all sides. "We can't hold this line." Pentecost's voice cuts through the chaos from Anchorage, steady but grim. "All units, initiate civilian priority extraction. Fall back to secondary perimeter." Outside the city, Godzilla moves inland. He doesn't look back at the collapsing skyline. His attention is fixed on a seismic signal miles away, something heavier, deeper, pulling him forward with irresistible gravity. Each step he takes inland sends tremors through suburbs and highways, shattering glass and buckling roads. Not out of malice, but indifference. To the people fleeing below, the distinction means nothing. "He left us!" A woman screams as she stumbles through floodwater, clutching her child. "The monster just walked away." In the command feeds, the optics are unforgiving. Godzilla's massive silhouette recedes toward the horizon, while the city behind him drowns in kaiju claws and fire. "They're blaming him," a strategist mutters, "and us." In the streets, one Jaeger still stands. Its armor is scorched, left arm hanging uselessly at its side, servos whining in protest. Evacuation transports scream overhead, lifting off under missile cover as the last civilians scramble aboard. "Command," the Jaeger's pilot says, breathing hard inside the compod. "My sector still has people trapped in the lower transit tunnels." "Negative," comes the reply instantly. "You are ordered to withdraw. That area is lost." The pilot's jaw tightens, sweat drips down his brow as he stares at the heat signatures flickering beneath collapsed infrastructure, hundreds of them huddled in darkness as kaiju footsteps shake the ground above. "I can reach them," he says quietly. "That's not a request," Command snaps back. "Your Jaeger won't survive another engagement." The pilot hesitates. Memories flicker across the neural link, training halls, recruitment speeches, the promise that Jaegers exist so no one else has to stand alone against extinction. "I didn't sign up to retreat from people," he says. Before Command can respond, he cuts the channel. The Jaeger turns back into the city. Missiles slam into its chest, knocking it sideways as a kaiju lunges from the smoke. The pilot roars, shoving power into failing systems, driving the machine forward with sheer will. He rips the kaiju's head free and keeps moving, step by agonizing step, toward the collapsed tunnels. Above the battlefield, news drones capture everything. The footage spreads faster than any official statement ever could. Godzilla abandoning a city. Jaegers overwhelmed. One machine disobeying orders while the rest fall back. Faith fractures. Governments argue in emergency chambers while riots erupt in refugee zones. Some demand Godzilla be destroyed at any cost. Others call for the Jaeger program to be dismantled entirely. Symbols of broken promises and false security. "They said the machines would save us," a man shouts on a broadcast, standing amid ruins. "They said the monsters were gone." In Anchorage, Pentecost watches the feeds in silence. Every casualty report lands like a physical blow. Newton stands nearby, shaken. "This is how it starts," he says quietly. Fear turning inward. On the city feed, the rogue Jaeger reaches the tunnels. Its massive hands claw through concrete, ripping open an escape path as civilians pour out beneath its legs, running for their lives. Then a shadow falls over it. A kaiju rises from the smoke, larger than the others, jaws splitting wide as it prepares to strike. The Jaeger turns to face it, weapons failing, armor cracked beyond safe limits. Inside the con pod, the pilot steadies his breathing. "Come on," he whispers. Across the city, the ground shakes as Godzilla pauses inland, his massive head turning slightly, as if something far behind him has finally caught his attention. And in the burning megacity, one Jaeger pilot stands his ground, refusing to run, as faith in gods and machines alike shatters around him. The ocean trembles before the Jaeger even moves. Deep beneath the turbulent waves, the rogue Mark 6, scarred from previous engagements and overloaded with makeshift upgrades, descends towards the breach. Every meter closer radiates tension through the neural link, transmitting fear, resolve, and unspoken sacrifice between the pilots. They know this is no reconnaissance mission. This is a one-way path. "Command," the left pilot whispers, voice taut. "We can't hold back any longer. If we don't do this, Godzilla and everything beyond won't be slowed." Pentecost's voice crackles faintly through the comms, strained with urgency. "Negative, pull back. This is a suicide run." The pilot's jaw tightens. Not an option. He glances at his co-pilot, eyes locked in a silent agreement. Hands grip the controls as if holding on to life itself, but the choice has already been made. Outside, the ocean swirls like boiling metal. The breach pulses, jagged edges flickering with unstable energy, calling out like a siren. Godzilla's massive form moves methodically towards the aperture, dorsal plates glowing faintly, eyes fixed on the churning blue maw. The Jaeger emerges from the depths behind the Titan, thrusters screaming, cutting through the water with all remaining power. Its arms bear improvised payloads, reactor cores primed to detonate, welded into armor like ticking time bombs. Every system screams against the strain, the neural link nearly overloaded from the feedback. "Detonation in 30 seconds, the right pilot says. "All power into targeting. Aim for the breach's center." Godzilla glances over his shoulder, sensing the approaching machine. His eyes flare, reflective of the growing storm above. The tail lifts, slicing through the ocean with devastating precision, sending waves that threaten the Jaeger's balance. Hydraulic warnings scream in unison. "Steady, steady," the left pilot mutters. Fingers fly across the controls, firing plasma cutters and chains to carve a path through debris and scattered kaiju. The Jaeger slams into the seabed, groaning under its own weight, the hull screaming from stress fractures. "Halfway there," the co-pilot shouts. "Don't lose it now." With one final surge, the Mark 6 lurches directly beneath the breach, stabilizers screaming against the violent currents. The pilots lock in. Countdown reaches 0. "Now!" The reactor cores detonate. A blinding explosion tears through the ocean. Water columns rise like molten towers, boiling, vaporizing, radiating energy in all directions. Shockwaves slam into the seabed and surge outward, lifting kaiju into the air like ragdolls. The ocean itself glows a sickly, radioactive blue for miles. Currents boiling with unnatural heat. Godzilla takes the blast head on. The atomic glow in his dorsal plates flickers violently. For the first time, his massive frame falters under force, staggering slightly as searing energy slams across his chest. Even a creature born of millennia, a living god of balance, can feel pain. His roar cracks through the storm, low, resonant, and terrifying, a sound that echoes through water and air alike. Inside the command center, technicians and scientists recoil, eyes wide. Radiation meters spike uncontrollably. He actually bled, Gottlieb breathes, disbelief lacing every word. Godzilla's tail lashes into the remaining water with fury, striking the dying Jaeger, sending debris scattering. The pilots scream through neural feedback, their bodies straining as the systems overload one last time. The reactor cores are spent, the machine is dead. But the explosion worked. The breach convulses violently, energy surges, destabilizing the aperture for a fleeting instant. Godzilla, now enraged and pulsing with atomic fury, lifts his head, dorsal plates brighter than ever before, radiating power that could vaporize the surrounding ocean. The storm above reacts to his wrath, lightning slamming into the waves, thunder shaking the coastline. Pentecost exhales, watching the screens with grim understanding. It worked, but at what cost? Newton turns, face pale. We just proved he can be harmed, and we just made him furious. Far beyond the glowing waves of energy ripple outward, Godzilla's roar merges with the cracking sky and boiling seas, announcing to the world that balance is not mercy, and that the cost of defiance, of challenging him or the breach, will be measured in fire, steel, and blood. In the wreckage of the Jaeger, the pilots' faces are pressed to the neural link, silent but alive, a testament to human courage and desperation. Yet even as they survive, they know nothing can contain what comes next. Godzilla's dorsal plates flare brighter than ever, signaling not just strength, but the unrelenting fury of a force humanity cannot command. And somewhere beyond the breach, the world waits, shattered, radioactive, and on the brink of witnessing a power that will not be denied. The horizon shivers. Lightning forks across the storm-darkened sky as the sea churns violently, a rolling battlefield alive with energy and fear. In the distance, something massive rises from the depths, an apex predator from a world older than human memory. Its scales ripple with iridescent armor, each movement shaking water and air alike. This is no ordinary kaiju. This is the precursor's ultimate weapon, the walking extinction event. Godzilla pauses on the surface, dorsal plates flaring like molten cobalt, steam boiling from his massive shoulders. He tilts his head, sensing the threat, energy pulsing along his spine in perfect rhythm. The air thickens with the scent of ozone and radiation. The ocean itself seems to bow before what is about to unfold. Command. This one's enormous, Newton mutters, eyes glued to the live feed. We're talking bigger than any Jaeger we've ever built, bigger than anything that survived the Kaiju War. Pentecost leans over the console, jaw tight. It's the breach's apex, and Godzilla just stopped. The first clash happens without warning. The kaiju strikes, swinging an armored limb the size of a city block. Water and waves erupt as the blow slams into the ocean, sending a wall of seawater over nearby Jaeger units. The sheer force hurls a Mark VI sideways, systems screaming under the strain. Godzilla responds with precision. A coil of atomic energy builds behind his jaws, and with a deafening roar, he unleashes a concentrated blast that tears through the kaiju's forearm. The armor buckles, scales smoking, but it does not fall. The Titan shakes it off, turning its attention to the surface again, roaring a challenge that shakes ships miles away. Jaegers, battered but undeterred, surge forward to support, their weapons firing in synchrony with Godzilla's strikes. Missiles streak through the storm, plasma cannons light up the night, and chainswords slice through fleeing smaller kaiju that have joined the fray. Yet every strike, every movement is dwarfed by the magnitude of the duel unfolding before them. Humanity's finest machines are now mere threads woven into a tapestry of titanic warfare. The breach begins to pulse violently, energy spilling outward in uncontrolled bursts, its edges flare and crack, scattering volatile matter into the ocean. The kaiju grow agitated, their cries a mix of fear and pain. One massive creature, sensing the instability, thrashes in all directions, forcing even Godzilla to step carefully, his movements measured and deliberate. Inside the con pod of a nearby Jaeger, the pilot's neural link vibrates with tension. "We're outmatched," one breathes. "Even with Godzilla, we can't survive on our own," the other completes grimly. "But we have to buy time." Above them, Godzilla pivots, tail lashing violently, striking multiple kaiju in a sweeping arc that clears space for the Jaegers to reposition. Each tail strike sends shockwaves through the ocean, ripping apart any kaiju that dares approach too closely. Water columns erupt as smaller enemies are vaporized mid-air, a testament to the raw scale of Godzilla's power. The camera cuts to the apex kaiju, chest armored in complex latticework, designed to absorb and reflect atomic energy. It roars, a sound that resonates deep into the ocean floor and launches a concentrated strike at Godzilla. The beam hits, and for the first time the Titan stumbles. Radiation flares explode across his dorsal plates, illuminating the storm like a second sun. Newton swallows, voice low. He's bleeding again, but he won't stop. Pentecost grips the edge of the console. "Every Jaeger in range, focus on defensive positions, keep civilians away. We can't hold this battlefield alone." From beneath the breach, a low hum rises, growing in volume and intensity. Energy pulses faster, arcs of lightning lancing from the aperture into the ocean. The breach expands uncontrollably, tearing the ocean floor apart, raising a vortex that threatens to swallow everything in its path. The kaiju that survived the first clash scatter further, some falling back into the abyss, others driven straight into Godzilla's path. Godzilla roars again, a sound filled with fury, purpose, and challenge. His eyes burn toward the breach, toward the largest kaiju, towards the human machines that cling to life in the storm-tossed waters. Every step he takes sends waves that ripple through the city coasts and the battlefield alike. Pentecost exhales slowly, watching the chaos unfold. "It's not just a war," he mutters. "It's the planet itself fighting back." And above the roiling ocean, lightning and atomic fire mingle, painting the sky in violent shades of cobalt and gold, as Godzilla and the apex kaiju collide once more, ushering humanity into a battle beyond their scale, beyond their comprehension, where even the mightiest Jaeger can only support, never dominate. The breach pulses brighter, threatening to tear itself and the world apart. The neural link hums like a storm trapped in metal. Inside the con pod, the Jaeger vibrates under every pulse from the battlefield. Shock waves of atomic fire, tail strikes, and collapsing buildings transmitted directly into the pilot's minds. Eyes dart across gauges, fingers grip controls tighter, but the real pressure is unseen. The mental feedback, the constant, inescapable echo of kaiju screams and human screams alike. Each heartbeat carries a memory, not entirely their own, bleeding into their consciousness through the drift. Again. "It's happening," the left pilot whispers, voice raw, sweat glints under the dim console lights. I'm seeing them. All of them." "Who?" the co-pilot asks, gripping the neural interface as if it were a lifeline. The Jaeger rocks slightly, bowing under the weight of a distant explosion. "Kaiju. Cities, people falling," the first replies. His voice trembles. "And Godzilla, I see him roaring, and then the world, it's empty." The co-pilot freezes, eyes wide, the neural feedback flickering across the display. "Empty? Like no one left?" Yes, the pilot says. No humans, no kaiju, just ruins. Silence. He shivers, pressing a hand to his temple, as if trying to hold himself together. And it's like I lived it, or it's trying to tell me something. Outside, the Jaeger shudders violently as another kaiju strikes nearby. Sparks scatter along the armor as plasma cannons fire instinctively. The pilots feel every impact twice, once in their bodies, once in their minds, amplified by memories that aren't theirs, by visions no human should endure. "Pull us back," the co-pilot gasps. "I can't. My head." "No," the first insists, eyes darting at the storm outside. "We have to stay. We're the only ones in position. If we pull out now, the line collapses." The neural feedback intensifies. Faces of the dead flash in peripheral vision, kaiju silhouettes twisted against burning cities, civilians screaming in corridors that no longer exist. The pilot's memories and the visions overlap, folding the present into endless possible futures. Every synapse screams, every thought fractures. "Pentecost," the co-pilot whispers into the comms, voice barely audible. We're seeing things. Visions. Not just memories, something else, something after. Static floods the feed. In the con pod, the lights flicker. Panels blink with warning symbols, not for mechanical failure, but for neural overload. Sweat pours down faces as the pilots struggle to maintain cohesion, trying to separate their own emotions from the ones imposed by the drift. "What do you see?" the left pilot asks, voice tight. "Be honest." The co-pilot swallows. Cities gone, oceans boiling, forests dead, humans gone, and him, Godzilla, still there, standing, watching. The Jaeger rocks violently again, more from the mental strain than any external attack. The pilots are sweating, trembling, their hands shaking on the controls, but still they hold the line. Around them, smaller Jaegers engage kaiju, fire and explosions, a distant storm. Yet inside the con-pod, the battle is nothing compared to the war inside their minds. "You're hallucinating," the left pilot mutters, trying to ground himself. "It's just stress, just neural fatigue." But the visions persist. Streets empty, seas empty, skies darkened, cities reduced to ash. And in the midst of it all, a solitary figure, massive and unyielding, moving across the ruins. Godzilla, dorsal plates ablaze, eyes glowing with purpose, untouched by time or destruction. "I can't shake it," the co-pilot admits, voice breaking. "It's like a warning or a memory from before we existed. Something beyond the breach, beyond the war, and it's telling us Earth doesn't survive unless—" He trails off, jaw tight. The Jaeger shudders again as a distant atomic pulse from Godzilla's ongoing battle reverberates through the ocean, rattling the machine like a tuning fork. Outside, the storm thickens. Lightning arcs over the waves, illuminating the battlefield in jagged frames. Jaegers engaging kaiju, cities burning, the breach pulsing dangerously. But inside the con-pod, the pilot's world narrows to a single vision, a planet empty of life. Godzilla standing alone, as if he is the last witness to all that has been lost and all that might be lost. The left pilot exhales, trembling. We can't let it end like this." The co-pilot nods slowly, eyes wide, haunted. "Then we hold. No matter what we see, no matter what we feel." But the vision lingers, a shadow at the edge of consciousness. The Jaeger moves forward through the storm, the pilot's hands steadying despite the strain, their minds teetering on the edge of reality. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the waves and the breach, the echoes of a future Earth, empty, silent, radioactive, waits for those who dare to survive. The ocean itself trembles as if the planet is holding its breath. Sensors across the Pacific spike violently, readings fluctuating beyond any scale the PPDC has ever recorded. Deep beneath the breach, energy pulses outward, not just from the aperture, but from the very mantle of the Earth itself. Seismic instruments scream in warning as the crush shudders, waves tearing apart coastlines before any human settlement can react. Pentecost leans over the console, voice low and tight. This isn't just kaiju activity, this is planetary destabilization. The breach, it's pulling energy from the core. Newton stares at the live feed, eyes wide, voice cracking. It's feeding off the planet itself. If it keeps going, Earth doesn't just lose cities, it dies. Above the churning waters, Godzilla pauses, dorsal plates glowing brighter than ever. The atomic energy radiates outward, a living counterpulse against the breach's siphoning. Steam and radiation mix with the storm above, lightning snapping into the sea like nails driven by unseen fury. Godzilla doesn't roar this time. His eyes are narrow, focused, and ancient. Every movement precise, every step measured. The battlefield is no longer about survival, it's about balance. Gottlieb presses a hand to her mouth, disbelief and awe mixed. He's not protecting us. He's regulating. He's trying to keep the planet alive, even if it kills everything else. The Jaegers hover at the edge of Godzilla's path, battered but functional. Plasma cannons fire intermittently, missiles arc in tandem, but their pilots hesitate, reading the situation with dawning comprehension. The enemy is no longer just kaiju. They are witnessing the force of nature itself, acting on a scale humanity cannot influence. One pilot mutters under his breath, trembling. All this time, we thought we were the defenders, but he's the god out here, not us. Suddenly, the breach pulses again. A massive surge of energy erupts, lifting the water like a volcanic wave. The surface cracks in concentric rings, ripples spreading across hundreds of miles. Smaller kaiju scream as their bodies convulse, their neural links short-circuiting under the intensity. Even the largest titans struggle to maintain composure against the force emanating from the breach. Godzilla braces himself on the ocean floor, body pulsing with synchronized energy. Each dorsal plate becomes a node, radiating heat, light, and raw atomic power that clashes with the breach's pull. Water boils violently around him, tearing ships from the surface, scattering debris like toys. "Look at that," Newton whispers, voice trembling. "Every step he takes is like he's feeding energy back into the planet. It's not just fighting kaiju, it's counteracting the breach itself." The Jaegers move closer, unsure whether they're aiding or intruding. Their sensors catch the faintest pulse from Godzilla's neural energy, waves so profound they ripple through the machines themselves. One Mark 6 shudders violently, warning lights screaming. "Don't interfere," Pentecost orders. "Let him do what he must. We can't survive this battle if we try to fight him too." Above, the storm intensifies, clouds swirl, twisted by radiation and energy feedback. Lightning strikes the ocean in jagged forks, illuminating Godzilla's immense form. Steam hisses from his shoulders, his tail slicing through waves that rise taller than skyscrapers. Every impact, every movement carries the weight of millennia. He isn't angry, he isn't merciful, he is balance incarnate. Inside the con-pod, the pilot's hands tremble. "If he loses," the co-pilot whispers, "if he fails to stabilize the breach, Earth doesn't just lose, nothing survives." Gottlieb stares at the data feed, stomach tight. He's not a hero. He's a judge. And this trial, It's already begun. Godzilla shifts, tail lashing, body glowing hotter, dorsal plates flaring with white-hot intensity. He leans forward, atomic energy pooling behind his jaws. The breach reacts instantly, sucking harder, drawing more power from the planet's molten core. The very ground shakes as magma shifts beneath the ocean floor. Newton swallows, staring at the monitor. He's going to stop it. He has to. But at this scale, even he... A deep resonance vibrates through the ocean, a low-frequency roar that isn't Godzilla, isn't kaiju, isn't human. It's the planet itself responding to the push and pull, a living force acknowledging its regulator. The Jaegers tremble in the water, sensing the magnitude of the energy flux. And then, a single, undeniable truth echoes through every system, every sensor, and every mind. Godzilla is no longer fighting for or against humanity. He is fighting for the planet itself, indifferent to human life, indifferent to kaiju, responding only to the equilibrium that must be restored, or everything ends. As the breach rips open further, pulling energy from the molten core, the ancient Titan roars, dorsal plates brighter than ever, a warning and a declaration. The storm mirrors his fury, the ocean writhing, and humanity watches helpless, caught between survival and the god of balance himself. The sea churns with radioactive fury, boiling under a storm that feels alive. From the horizon, Godzilla emerges, dorsal plates glowing white-hot, steam hissing from each ridge, casting lightning-like reflections across the surface. He moves with purpose, unyielding, each step sending tidal waves rolling toward the shorelines, still reeling from earlier battles. Behind him, a handful of Jaegers limps forward, scorched, battered, systems warning of imminent failure, but their neural links hum in unison with the ancient Titan. Pentecost watches the monitors, jaw tight. It's allowing them, he mutters. Godzilla's letting them walk beside him. Newton leans closer, eyes narrowing. We're escorting a creature that could crush us with a flick of its tail, and it's letting us do it, for now. The Jaegers' pilots grip controls with white-knuckled resolve. Every step beside Godzilla is a reminder of their fragility. Their plasma cannons remain raised, systems online, but they do not fire. For the first time, obedience is survival. They are walking with a god, not against it. The water around them churns violently. Kaiju debris, destroyed in previous engagements, floats like driftwood. Waves crash against Jaeger legs, each step threatening to destabilize hydraulics, but Godzilla's massive frame acts as a stabilizing force, moving in perfect rhythm with the machines beside him. Inside one compod, the co-pilot whispers, voice tight, "I've never felt this small." The left pilot swallows hard, staring through the visor at the immense scales, the glowing dorsal plates. Small, and yet somehow necessary. If he fails, we all fail. Above, the sky splits with lightning, feeding into the breach's unstable energy. The air tastes of ozone and radiation. Each Jaeger trembles as if feeling the planet's heartbeat, synchronized with Godzilla's own. There is no hostility here, only mutual acknowledgement of scale and purpose. Gottlieb observes from the command center. We're riding alongside the ultimate weapon, but it's the weapon keeping the planet alive. Her voice tightens. If we misstep, if a Jaeger falters, we trigger his wrath. The lead Jaeger's pilot exhales, a shudder running through neural feedback. Every system is warning me to run, he says, but every instinct says we keep pace. A massive plume erupts from the breach, lancing into the clouds. Energy arcs outward, lightning and plasma slicing the sky. The ocean boils violently around Godzilla and the Jaegers, waves towering above human comprehension. Yet the Titan does not flinch. He doesn't roar, he simply moves, deliberate, unwavering, guiding the machines into position closer to the breach's heart. The Jaeger's armor groans under the pressure, servos straining to maintain synchronization with the Titan's steps. Pilots share memories, trying to keep pace mentally as well as physically. But every surge of atomic energy radiating from Godzilla overwhelms the link. Neural strain claws at them, but still they march forward, step by step. Pentecost's voice comes again, low but firm. Keep them alive. They are the line between the breach destabilizing further or being stabilized. Don't let one fail. The camera pans wide. Godzilla's immense form dwarfs the last remaining Jaegers, yet they stride beside him, resolute. The ocean churns, skies split by storms, and the breach pulses violently ahead, its energy clawing at the planet's core. Humanity's last defense is not firepower, but cohesion, trust, and the fragile alliance with a creature beyond understanding. Inside a con-pod, one pilot swallows, staring at Godzilla's back. We're not controlling this, he mutters. We're just holding on. The co-pilot nods, white-knuckled, breath shallow. Holding on, and hoping we're enough. Above them, the breach roars, energy surging outward, pulling at tectonic plates and the ocean floor alike. Godzilla steps forward, unwavering, atomic energy pooling behind his jaws. The Jaegers follow without hesitation. For a heartbeat, the world feels balanced only by sheer force of will and steel, by the god of balance walking with humanity's last machines. And in that moment, every pilot knows. Survival depends not on weapons, but on staying close to a force that could kill them all if it chooses. The horizon glows with the breach's fury. Godzilla's dorsal plates flare brighter, and the Jaegers press forward, walking into the heart of what might be the planet's final storm. The breach gapes like a wound in the sky, a pulsing vortex of molten energy that drags at the ocean and skies alike. Kaiju surge forth in unrelenting waves, monstrous silhouettes flinging water into towering columns as they charge. Each one is a weapon of ancient design, armor glinting with alien geometry, teeth and claws honed to annihilate anything that moves. The storm above mirrors their chaos. Lightning arcs split the clouds, thunder shakes the horizon, and the ocean itself boils under the combined assault of kaiju and atomic energy. Godzilla moves through it all, a mountain of living power. His dorsal plates flare white-hot, atomic breath charging with precision, sweeping aside kaiju like ragdolls. Each strike is deliberate, calculated, measured to absorb and deflect damage that would flatten entire cities. Waves crash violently against his scaled feet, spray boiling instantly under the heat radiating from him, yet he presses onward without hesitation. Jaegers follow, battered and burned, their armor scorched from earlier confrontations. Missiles fire in arcs, plasma beams carve through approaching kaiju, but one by one they fall. Explosions tear through hulls, hydraulic systems fail under impacts that no machine should survive. Each loss is a thunderous reminder of the imbalance between human technology and the ancient forces they now walk alongside. "Mark 6 to all units," a pilot shouts, voice trembling but resolute over the comms. "Hold the line. Keep the path clear for Godzilla." The co-pilot of another Jaeger bites back fear, glancing at the Titan before them. "Every one of these things," he says, a voice raw. "They're alive and they're endless." A colossal kaiju swings an armored limb, cleaving the ocean like glass. A Mark 6 is caught, ripped apart in a cascade of fire and water. The pilots inside are thrown from the neural link, screams echoing even through the chaos. Godzilla's tail lashes in response, smashing the next wave of kaiju into the boiling waters. Even as his atomic breath cuts swathes through enemies, he flinches slightly under the sheer force of multiple attacks at once, dorsal plates flickering under the strain. Pentecost leans over the comms, voice grim. All remaining Jaegers focus on escort, not combat. Godzilla can handle the front, you buy him time. But the pilots know the cost. Their neural links buzz, sending waves of adrenaline and terror through their bodies. The ocean swells violently around them as another kaiju emerges, taller and faster than any before. Missiles strike but barely scratch its armor. Plasma cutters tear through water with little effect. The Jaeger is forced back, systems screaming, but they hold, knowing every second they delay, the swarm is a second closer to the breach's heart. Inside one con-pod, a single pilot swallows, voice tight with resolve. I can't pull back. If I leave and this line breaks, he won't make it without us. The co-pilot hesitates. We have orders. Retreat. No, the first cuts in, jaw set. I'm staying behind, for Godzilla, for the planet. The Jaeger lurches forward alone, moving into the inferno of the breach. Energy arcs from the vortex, lightning-like tendrils slashing the water, boiling the sea into vapor. Kaiju swarm around, drawn to the lone machine, as if sensing vulnerability. The pilot's hands tighten on the controls, eyes locked on the glowing titan ahead, dorsal plates radiating unstoppable energy. Hold the line, he whispers almost to himself as he guides the Jaeger into the heart of the breach's pull. Keep him alive, no matter what. Around them, the remaining Jaegers fall in sequence, one by one, explosions ripping across the ocean, metal twisted into unrecognizable shapes. Smoke and steam rise in a curtain, but Godzilla advances undeterred, massive feet pounding through waves, atomic breath slicing through swarming kaiju. His roar echoes over the chaos, a signal of purpose and fury. The surviving pilots watch from afar, hearts pounding. They see their comrades Jaeger vanish into the vortex, swallowed by the energy of the breach, yet still aligned with Godzilla's advance. Pentecost's voice cracks through the comms. He's gone, and he's buying every second we need, Godzilla. He's still moving forward. The breach pulses violently, energy tearing at the planet, the ocean, the storm itself. Lightning splits the sky. Water columns rise like molten towers. Godzilla wades through it all, each step precise, each strike deliberate, every motion a testament to balance against chaos. And in the heart of the fire, one Jaeger remains, pilots resolute, neural link overloaded, standing between the ancient Titan and the tearing forces of the breach. Humanity's last line of defense, chosen not by orders, but by will, becomes the fulcrum upon which the fate of the planet balances. The horizon glows white-hot with breach energy, waves boil and crash, and the storm above thrashes in response, as one pilot makes the irreversible choice to face the heart of the breach alone. The air inside the breach is a living furnace. Waves of energy ripple outward, bending light, boiling the water around it, and turning the sky above into a storm of white-hot plasma. Every sensor on every remaining Jaeger screams in overload, systems flickering, alarms blaring, but the pilots know there is no turning back. Inside the con-pod of the last operational Jaeger, the pilot's eyes are wide, slick with sweat, reflecting the chaos beyond the cockpit. This is it, he murmurs, voice tight. The only way. It has to be me. The co-pilot hesitates, hands trembling. No, there has to be another way. We can pull out, let Godzilla. Godzilla can't follow, the first interrupts, voice sharp, almost fragile with resolve. If we don't overload the core, the breach never closes. Everything we fought for, everything Godzilla did, it ends here. Outside, Godzilla presses forward, massive body illuminated by the breach's unrelenting energy. The Titan's dorsal plates flare white-hot, casting shadows across the trembling ocean. He moves with purpose, unaware that his escort is preparing the ultimate, irreversible action. Waves crash against his feet, kaiju debris floating around like toys, yet he advances steadily, atomic energy pulsing, eyes fixed on the gaping vortex ahead. The Jaeger shudders violently as the pilot initiates the core overload sequence. Panels flicker red, warning alarms screaming impossibly loud. Hydraulic systems strain as if the metal itself is protesting the sacrifice about to unfold. Steam hisses from ruptured conduits, sparks flying across the cockpit. The co-pilot grips the control interface, voice shaking. Are you sure? You're sure about this? The pilot swallows hard, eyes narrowing with grim determination. We don't have a choice. Godzilla can't survive the breach's pull. It's too much. Someone has to stop it from the inside. Outside, the breach pulses violently, pulling energy from the planet, shaking tectonic plates, sending tidal waves hundreds of meters high. Lightning splits the sky, feeding the already unstable vortex, the roar of the ocean mingling with the growls of kaiju trapped in its pull. Godzilla steps forward, tail lashing, atomic breath igniting the storm, yet his gaze never wavers from the aperture. The pilot takes a deep breath. Countdown engaged, he says softly. Panels flash, 3, 2, 1, overload. The Jaeger's core detonates in a massive surge of energy, metal groaning, steam and plasma bursting outward in a shockwave that radiates through the breach. Water explodes in every direction, steam and debris mixing with the molten energy, lightning arcing through the sky like living veins of fury. The ground shakes violently, waves towering impossibly high. Godzilla roars, atomic energy flaring brighter than ever. The blast catches him in silhouette, pushing him backward. The vortex shudders, rips widening, energy pulling in everything around it. For a heartbeat, time seems suspended. The storm, the ocean, the Titan, and the Jaeger at the center of the explosion frozen in a moment of violent, electric clarity. Then the Jaeger collapses inward, metal folding, core erupting in light that blinds even through the cockpit. The pilot's voice cuts out as systems fail, replaced by the deafening roar of energy tearing at reality itself. The breach begins to close. Energy pulses outward, then inward, the aperture contracting violently. Godzilla struggles against the pull, massive feet clawing at boiling water, dorsal plates sparking against the immense energy tug. But the Titan cannot follow. He roars in frustration and fury as the last Jaeger is consumed, sealing the portal, trapping him on the other side along with whatever remains of the precursors. The storm above quiets slightly, though the ocean still churns violently. Tectonic plates shudder as the planetary balance readjusts, yet seismic readings show anomalies, movements that shouldn't exist if the breach were truly sealed. Something beneath the surface stirs, something has survived. From the distant command center, Pentecost stares at the monitors, voice barely a whisper. It's over, but not everything. Newton swallows hard, eyes on the screens. Something made it through. Whatever survived. It's still down there. The camera pans back to the ocean, now calmer, but still boiling in patches of residual radiation. Godzilla's roar echoes faintly from the other side of the breach, fading into a low rumble. The scale of what has been lost, the Jaeger, the sacrifice, the trapped Titan, is almost unbearable. Inside the control room, silence falls for a heartbeat. Then a subtle tremor shakes the floor. Seismic feeds spike again, movement deep below. Eyes widen, jaws tighten. Humanity's final line has acted, but the fight, the reckoning, is far from over. And somewhere beneath the planet's surface, something stirs, waiting. The air is thick with ash and the faint scent of ozone, remnants of atomic fire lingering over the shattered coast. The ocean lies in uneasy calm, waves lapping against ruins half swallowed by seawater. From the horizon, a colossal shape emerges, dragging water and debris in its wake. Godzilla rises, battered and scarred, dorsal plates flickering weakly from their prior battles, steam curling from fissures in his scales. Each step leaves deep impressions in the sand and wreckage, sending tremors through the earth and into the hearts of those watching from the distant shores. For a moment he stands motionless, not roaring, not moving toward the ocean, just still, head tilting slightly, as though listening, sensing the subtle vibrations of a planet forever altered by the breach's assault. The city behind the coast is barely recognizable, buildings half collapsed, streets cracked and twisted. Fires still burn in pockets, flickering against the hazy sky. Humanity watches in frozen awe, unsure whether to fear him or the silence he carries. Pentecost's voice cuts through the comms, low and taut. He's alive, but he's not coming back to the ocean yet. That stillness isn't peace. It's assessment. Newton adjusts the scope of a remote observation drone, zooming on the Titan's eyes. They glint with something older than humanity. Ancient awareness, weighty judgment. He's listening to the planet, Newton murmurs. Not us, not the kaiju, just Earth. The first tremor of dread rolls through the coast as Godzilla shifts slightly, muscles tensing under the scarred plates. His tail lashes once, sending a wall of water crashing over the nearest rubble. Dust and steam mingle in the air, creating an almost surreal haze, the kind that makes the city feel smaller, insignificant, fragile. A lone fisherman's boat is caught in the surge, tipped and tossed aside like driftwood, a fleeting reminder of how powerless humanity is in comparison. Pentecost's hand rests over his mouth, voice tight. If he moves, if he actually decides something, there's no coming back from it. For a moment, silence reigns. Then Godzilla slowly turns. The glow of his dorsal plates pulsing in rhythm with a heartbeat that feels not his own but the planet's. The motion is deliberate, measured, terrifying in its inevitability. Sensors across the city spike wildly. Emergency sirens, barely functional after the prior destruction, begin to wail as officials scramble to understand the looming threat. But no command center, no military plan, no amount of firepower could change the truth staring back at them. The Titan is moving. The camera pans across humanity's survivors, emergency crews frozen mid-step, engineers gripping damaged consoles, and civilians crouched in ruined buildings, eyes wide. All of them instinctively understand that Godzilla's path is not random, it is judgment. Newton swallows, voice cracking. He's heading toward a population center. The city shudders under the tremors of each step. Glass and debris tumble from damaged skyscrapers. Cars are overturned. Fires flare as ruptured gas lines ignite, sending pillars of flame into the smoke-thickened air. Helicopters rise shakily from wreck pads, only to be tossed aside by turbulence from the Titan's movement. Pentecost mutters, voice trembling despite the calm tone he usually maintains. "We thought the breach was the worst of it. We thought the Kaiju were gone, but he's the consequence, not of them, of us. Godzilla pauses mid-step, nostrils flaring. Steam rises from every scar, from every fissure, as he inhales deeply. His eyes scan the city, absorbing every vibration, every heartbeat. The atomic energy pooling behind his jaws begins to glow faintly. Not a threat yet, but a promise. The world feels smaller under that gaze, insignificant, held accountable. Inside a temporary command center, engineers and scientists watch seismic readings spike again, each tremor echoing through the building. Even trapped by the breach, even after the overload, a technician whispers, voice tight with awe and terror, he survived. Everything, he survived. Outside, Godzilla steps forward again. Each movement is slow but decisive, sending minor earthquakes through streets and buildings. The city seems to shiver, as if anticipating the verdict of a king in exile. Humanity holds its breath. There is no roar, no atomic blast, yet the silence carries more weight than any weapon ever could. And in that moment, every camera, every sensor, every pair of human eyes trained on him registers a single truth. Godzilla's judgment is coming. He does not move with malice nor mercy. He moves with the authority of an ancient balance toward the very heart of civilization. And humanity can only watch, waiting to see if survival or annihilation will be the verdict. The Titan pauses on the outskirts of the city, tail brushing the cracked streets, dorsal plates flaring brighter. Steam hisses around him, and then, slow, inevitable, measured, he turns fully toward the center, signaling that what comes next will decide more than just survival. It will decide humanity's place in a world ruled by forces they barely understand. The air trembles with the aftershock of Godzilla's approach. Dust and debris swirl in the still-lit sky, stirred by the last waves of tremors from his enormous footsteps. The city hangs in frozen tension, buildings cracked, streets fractured, fires still smoldering in pockets, while the survivors, huddled, silent, wide-eyed, wait to see whether the Titan will deliver final judgment or mercy. Godzilla stops, colossal frame half submerged in debris-laden water, tail coiled like a living whip behind him. The dorsal plates along his spine glow bright, illuminating the destruction in ghostly blue-white flashes. For a moment, the world seems to hold its breath. The Titan tilts his head skyward, nostrils flaring, absorbing the air thick with ash, smoke, and ionized electricity. Then, without warning, a controlled pulse of atomic energy arcs from him, shooting straight into the sky. The pulse is unlike the devastation of his past attacks. It erupts upward in a perfect cone, dispersing harmlessly over the clouds, illuminating the city in a blinding flash that leaves every onlooker blinking, shielding their eyes. The buildings shiver, glass rattling, fires igniting briefly from the heat, then extinguishing as if the city itself had been cauterized by the energy. It is a message, a declaration. Balance restored. For now. From the command center, Pentecost leans forward, fingers gripping the console, his face pale in the glow of the monitor. He didn't strike. He spared us, he mutters, voice heavy with disbelief. But this isn't forgiveness, it's a warning. Newton wipes sweat from his brow, scanning the seismic and energy readings. The magnitude of that pulse, it could have flattened entire districts if misdirected. He's telling us we're still too fragile to survive unchecked. Outside, Godzilla slowly turns, massive tail swinging with deliberate care to avoid hitting remaining ruins. He wades backward toward the ocean, each step sending tidal waves toward broken piers and fractured streets. Yet the devastation is measured, controlled. The survivors watch in awe as the Titan retreats, each step a reminder that humanity had survived, but only by the grace or calculation of a being older and wiser than they can comprehend. The Jaeger program's remnants, though still operational, are silent. Systems are still hot, diagnostics running, but pilots know the truth. The war that defined their lives, the reason for every neural strain, every loss, every night spent staring down monsters larger than comprehension, has ended. Not in victory, but in obsolescence. Pentecost speaks again, voice ringing through the comms, calm but resolute. The Jaeger program is officially shut down. All remaining units are decommissioned, effective immediately. Humanity's defense will come from knowledge, not steel. Pilots exchange looks, a mixture of relief, grief, and lingering guilt. Years of training, lives spent fusing mind and machine, sacrifices beyond measure, all rendered secondary to the understanding that Godzilla alone now stands as the planet's regulator. One pilot murmurs almost to himself, "We fought and we survived, but we're no longer necessary." The city trembles again as Godzilla reaches the water's edge. He pauses, looking back at the broken skyline. In his eyes, a mixture of something human-like in its weight, a silent acknowledgement of lives saved and lost, of the fragile species still clinging to existence. Then, with one last low, resonant growl that vibrates through the buildings, he slips into the ocean. Water erupts around him in a towering surge, cascading down like a liquid curtain, hiding his massive form from view. Above, the clouds part slightly as sunlight breaking through the haze, revealing a battered but surviving world. Seismic readings normalize slowly, though subtle tremors hint at Earth's continuing restlessness. Scientists monitor every signal, aware that while Godzilla's judgment has been deferred, the balance he maintains is a constant reminder of humanity's fragility. Pentecost exhales, voice softer now, tinged with sorrow and acceptance. We have a chance, but it's not our victory. It's a reprieve, and reprieves don't last forever. The camera pans across the city, lingering on the cracked streets, smoking buildings, and scattered survivors looking toward the horizon. Somewhere in the distance, waves still break against ruins, and in the ocean, beneath the surface, Godzilla's presence lingers, a silent sentinel, watching, waiting, and reminding the world that balance, not conquest, rules the age of Titans. In the control room, a single screen flickers. With the last live feed from the Jaegers, the display goes dark. Humanity has survived. The Jaeger program ends and the world waits, forever aware that the line between survival and annihilation is a Titan's step away. The morning sun glints off the rebuilt coastal skyline, a series of low-slung buildings painted in muted colors, deliberately designed to blend with the shoreline rather than challenge it. The ocean stretches wide and calm, deceptively serene, its surface only occasionally broken by small fishing vessels or research drones. Humanity has learned restraint. They no longer stake their cities like bait along the coast. Every structure, every harbor, every road is a testament to survival, tempered by fear and respect. On a quiet pier, a group of children runs, laughing, kicking up dust along the wooden planks. Their joy is innocent, unaware of the scars left behind, scars that linger not just in the ruins, but in the memory of their parents and the faint tremors still occasionally felt beneath the earth. A woman watches them, hands folded over her chest, eyes distant as she surveys the horizon, where ocean meets sky. She breathes deeply, the salt air tinged with something more electric than normal, an echo, a memory of what once was. Miles offshore, a shadow moves beneath the water, long and deliberate. Not a ship, not a whale. A faint dorsal silhouette glints against the sunlight, refracting through the waves. Sailors aboard a small research vessel pause mid-task, binoculars raised instinctively. For a heartbeat, the world seems to remember collectively that something far older than humanity still rules the deep. Meanwhile, in a high-rise monitoring station overlooking the bay, the last generation of PPDC scientists, older, grayer, eyes lined with the tension of past battles, track seismic activity, ocean currents, and satellite feeds. Most of the Jaeger program relics are in museums, displayed behind reinforced glass. One console, powered up out of curiosity rather than necessity, flickers alive with deep-sea readings. "Sensors are coming back online," an older technician says softly, almost to himself, voice catching on the weight of the words, "after all these years." A young scientist, barely born during the last Kaiju crisis, peers over the screen. "What are they picking up?" The older man shakes his head. "Nothing yet, but the systems, they're alive again, feeding data, mapping anomalies. Something might be waking down there." The camera pans from the monitoring station to the rebuilt city, tracing every block, carefully planned to survive future waves. Children play, street vendors call out, and pedestrians navigate the cautious traffic. It's a world of small victories, of humanity relearning its rhythm beneath the shadow of a king that may one day return. Out at sea, the water ripples again, subtle but deliberate. Waves break in unnatural patterns, sending fish scattering. For those paying attention, it is a reminder. Godzilla still patrols the deep, a sentinel of balance, appearing rarely, almost ceremonially. Sailors tell stories to tourists, old tales of a titan whose footsteps shook the earth, who spared humanity out of judgment, not mercy. Tourists laugh, but the locals know better. They feel the vibrations in their bones, hear the faint, distant pulse of something massive beneath the waves. Back on the pier, the woman watches the horizon. Her hand unconsciously rests on a necklace, a tiny metallic charm shaped like a Jaeger, left to her by a parent who never returned. She squints, sensing a shift in the wind, a ripple in the waves, something beyond the ordinary rhythms of tides and storms. Her heart tightens. In the monitoring station, alarms remain silent, yet the sensors have begun to detect faint energy signatures deep below. Not kaiju, not mechanical, but something vast. Patterns emerge, familiar yet alien, pulsing slowly in the blackness of the ocean floor. The young scientist leans closer, tapping the screen. I don't know what it is, but it's moving. Something survived. The older technician exhales, his face grave, eyes reflecting the same awe and fear he once felt watching Godzilla stride through cities unchallenged. "God help us," he mutters, "because if it's waking, the world isn't ready." Above, gulls wheel in the wind, waves lap at the carefully rebuilt docks, and the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across a city, cautious yet alive. The camera pans beneath the ocean surface, past the flickering signals of returning deep-sea sensors toward darkened depths. Something stirs, slow, immense, deliberate. Its presence is undeniable, unmeasurable in scale, and entirely beyond human control. For a moment, the world is quiet, deceptively peaceful. And then, deep below, a pulse of energy radiates outward, subtle but persistent. A heartbeat from the abyss. Humanity has adapted, rebuilt, and survived, but beneath the ocean, in the quiet and shadowed depths, something waits, moving unseen, waiting for the moment to remind them why balance has always belonged to forces far older than themselves. Sunlight streams through the massive glass walls of the museum, casting fractured beams across the polished floor. Dust motes float lazily in the air, caught in the light like tiny stars suspended in time. At the center of the hall stands the final Jaeger, a Mark VI unit, silent and imposing, its armor dulled, scarred, and permanently etched with the memories of battles it can no longer fight. Visitors pass quietly, cameras clicking, whispers echoing against the metal and concrete. Some stop to touch the railing, tracing the etched symbols that once represented humanity's defiance, while others stand in reverence, sensing the weight of history, of sacrifice, of survival. A retired pilot leans against the observation platform, hands resting on the railing. His eyes trace the contours of the Jaeger's shoulders, lingering on a dented forearm where a kaiju tail strike left a permanent mark. His expression is unreadable, part pride, part mourning, part awe. "We built gods in our own image," he murmurs, voice barely audible, "and they still weren't enough." The museum is eerily quiet except for the distant hum of air circulation and the faint creaking of metal. Interactive displays flash intermittently, telling stories of battles fought, cities lost, and lives given in the name of survival. Children gaze up at the towering machine, their small hands pressing against barriers wide-eyed. To them, the Jaeger is no longer a weapon. It is legend. It is a story of humanity reaching for the impossible. Below the waves, far beyond the gaze of humans, Godzilla rests. The Titan lies on a rugged trench floor surrounded by alien coral formations and deep-sea ridges that ripple with geothermal heat. His eyes are half-closed, lids heavy with exhaustion, scars from the breach battles etched into every scale. He is neither savior nor monster now, simply a constant, a force older than civilizations, balancing a world that could barely contain itself. Steam rises gently from his dorsal plates, faint bioluminescent glows flickering along his spine, pulsing like the slow, steady heartbeat of the planet itself. The pilot tilts his head toward a large window overlooking the harbor. Ships sail in careful formation, far from shorelines rebuilt cautiously over decades. The water is calm, glassy, as if the ocean itself has agreed to hold its breath in respect. "He's still out there," the pilot says softly, "and that's enough for now." A young museum docent steps up beside him holding a tablet that displays archival footage. She gestures at the Jaeger, voice tinged with awe. "Do you think he'll ever come back?" The pilot's gaze drifts across the hall, lingering on the mechanical giant. "Godzilla doesn't come back," he says slowly. "He moves when balance requires it. And when that happens, all we can do is survive. Or hope we do." The camera cuts below the waves, following the contours of the deep ocean. Godzilla shifts slightly, tail sweeping in slow arcs, eyes scanning the dim abyss. Ancient currents stir around him, carrying whispers of energy across tectonic plates. The Titan exhales, a slow plume of radioactive steam that trails upward like a signal to nothing and everything at once. The ocean floor vibrates faintly under his bulk, as if the world itself acknowledges his presence. Back in the museum, visitors continue to wonder, oblivious to the living force beneath the waves. The pilot closes his eyes briefly, memory flickering to battles fought, friends lost, and the uneasy alliance with a creature no human could ever truly command. His hands tighten around the railing. "We made our stand," he whispers, "and it wasn't enough to control him, but it was enough to learn humility." The Jaeger looms in silent grandeur, a testament to the ambition, courage, and fragility of humankind. Its head tilts slightly, as if listening to echoes from past neural connections and memories embedded in its circuits. Every scar, every dent, every charred panel is a reminder that the war was real, and so were the stakes. Deep-sea sensors, long dormant since the breach closed, flicker quietly to life in the distance, scanning for disturbances in the abyssal plains. For a heartbeat, reading spike, a pulse of energy, faint but undeniable. And then, silence. The monitors flicker, going dark, leaving only the hum of ocean currents and the low vibration of tectonic plates as testimony to the unseen, eternal presence below. The pilot exhales, shoulders relaxing fractionally. "The Titans sleep," he says, voice low, reverent. "And we wait." The camera pans outward from the museum hall over rebuilt cities past the calm ocean and into the shadowed depths where Godzilla rests. Steam curls into the black water, dorsal plates glowing intermittently, a heartbeat pulsing beneath the surface. Balance has returned, not through conquest and not through dominance, but through endurance, both human and Titan. The final shot lingers on the ocean, deep and unknowable, as the sensor's faint pulse fades completely into silence. Humanity survives. The Jaegers remain as relics of ambition, and Godzilla endures, a constant reminder that the world belongs first to forces beyond comprehension, and second to those who can learn to live in awe of them.